Frame Raider?
Free promotions inside food boxes have been a thing for decades, whether it be a bag of chips, Kraft dinner. Some brands have even made it a part of the experience to get something with the food, like Cracker Jacks, Kinder Surprise, or even McDonald's Happy Meals. Decades ago, the best you'd find in something like this is a toy or knickknack wrapped in a small plastic bag in order to separate it from the food and keep it protected before it ends up in your home. It didn't seem to matter what was inside, so long as it was cheap to produce and had some kind of appeal for kids.
Now Post offers you this special full-size plastic model of the SAC Survival Rifle. It looks exactly like the real one.
These always boosted sales. In many cases, you'd find parents buying brands of cereals they otherwise wouldn't simply because of the value in getting something extra for their kids to play with. Sometimes what you'd find inside could rival the cost of buying it individually outside of the promotion. So for many people, it was a no-brainer to buy them. Between the decade of, roughly, 1996 to 2006, there was a new type of cereal box promotion from General Mills. These would be computer games. Not demos either, free, full-version games. Of course, computer games had already existed for many years before this promotion, so you might be asking why this idea started in the 90s? There's a couple reasons for that. First of all, the 90s marked an era where computers became far more accessible. People were getting used to the idea of a computer being a typical household item, so to assume the average family already had one wasn't a stretch like it would be in the decades or even just years previous. Prior to the use of CDs, PC games came on floppy disks or other types of physical media. While not terribly expensive to produce, they weren't the kind of thing to reasonably give away as free promotion. In theory, they may have been able to make that money back with the increased sales, but it's far more risky with that tech. Free promotions generally rely on low risk and massive publication in order to make a solid return. So, like with anything, once the medium is cheap enough to distribute, promotions start to pour in. It wasn't just food-related promotions at this point. These types of deals were often made for other publications like magazines, for example, but that's a different story to tell. It's hard to know exactly when General Mills started doing this, but the earliest game to be released as a promotion was Disney's Activity Center, Aladdin, which was released in stores as a retail product in 1994. General Mills would go on to publish more promotional variants of these games from a variety of studios. Disney was first, quickly followed by Hasbro, and eventually Infogrames, which were responsible for most of the games past Y2K. Once you came home with your box of cereal, you'd then take the game out to find the CD, which often resembled the original game's CD. The labels were far more simplistic with less color, keeps it on the cheap. Place the CD into your disk drive and then usually an auto installer would pop up. Follow the instructions, deny the obligatory AOL service offer, then launch the shortcut and the game is ready to go. Fortunately, you can find a lot of CD dumps of these games online, so I should be able to retrieve the ones I have the most memories with. In theory, I could probably find copies of all these General Mill promotion games online, but there's at least 50 of them, and that's not quite what I intend to accomplish with this video. I figure the smartest thing to do would be to play these games in their order of release, so that means the first game we'll be looking at is Timon and Pumbaa's Jungle Games. This one's kinda bizarre because it's also on the Super Nintendo. That port is actually quite faithful to this PC game, however lacks a lot of detail like animated cutscenes that are quite high effort all things considered. Also, you don't need the disc inserted to play for some reason, so you could just give this away to someone else after installing. If you were a big fan of The Lion King, seeing the characters speak to you like this would have been incredible. For a kid. There's going to be a bit of a running theme in this video where a majority of the games are fun for children, and that's about it. Certainly not the case for every game, though. In Jungle Games, you can choose between 5 minigames, each being simplistic knockoffs of familiar arcade games. Besides the charm of characters like Timon and Pumbaa speaking to you on a regular basis, there's not too much to return to. Even as a child, I'm sure I would find these games rather uninteresting. Pajama Sam. So, Pajama Sam is inspired by his in-universe comic book hero of the same name, who fights the darkness. Now it's Sam's turn to fight the darkness on his own. His mom interrupts to tell him that it's time to sleep without a light on, even though the nightlight is still on. So, was he sleeping with his full set of lights on before? That must have been uncomfortable. Anyways, presumed hypothetical darkness lives in Sam's closet, so Sam decides to go in and tackle this threat. To the audience's surprise, there's actually a whole living world inside his closet. Now Sam must go on a typical point-and-click adventure through this mystical land and confront darkness himself. On first glance, this game may appear simple, but no, they clearly had a lot of effort put into this, with long animated cut sequences that are playful, comical, and fun. Wait, no way, it's Putt-Putt! Yeah, this is a fantastic game for young kids. Even today, it's pretty fun for the charm alone. Well, that's enough of that. Ultimate Yahtzee. So, this is one of those games that I wouldn't say is designed specifically for kids, rather all ages. And that goes for a lot of these board or card games, of which there were a lot for these promotions. I imagine they were very easy to license. What do I say about this, though? Well, it's Yahtzee. The most fun I got out of this was tossing the dice cup around, because sometimes the physics were a bit strange. These kind of games don't age particularly well, because once a better alternative comes around, you won't find people going back to this one. Clue. It's a classic murder mystery game where you and other players must explore a mansion while discovering clues to find out who done the murder. This seems like a decent interpretation of the game, albeit with very dated 3D graphics, which are almost certainly pre-rendered. Winnie the Pooh Print Studio. All you can do is create cards, calendars, and other printer-related stuff. The installer for this game is called Poops! Tonka Search and Rescue. On the main menu, you can select through a number of different organizations that need your help. I picked the zoo. First thing I had to do was relocate some animals using a helicopter. I'm glad only the latest in helicopter technology was used for these dangerous missions.
To scoop them up.
I think something is wrong with this front loader.
Ooh, don't dump. Ooh, don't dump. Ooh, don't dump.
I don't have any commentary for this. Frame saves animals.
Tonka Town salutes you!
Boggle. You might notice this is just a still image of the game disc. I didn't actually get a copy, nor do I think looking at it would do much for the video. I am only mentioning it to make this reference.
Boggle.
Who wants to be a millionaire? Regis Philbin passed away last year. That's sad. Did you know he holds the Guinness World Record for most hours recorded on US television? Considering the way US television's going, I imagine that record will stand for all time.
Welcome to the show. How many players?
Yeah, just give me a second.
All right, I'm going to ask you again. How many players are playing?
I know, I'm just grabbing a snack.
All right, somebody's got to help me here. Look around the room and count. Is it one? Is it more than one? Somebody let me hear from you, please.
I'm coming.
Okay, no game for you today. Come back next year. Maybe soup then. Maybe game then. Maybe never.
Yeah, the game just did that. This isn't just for the first screen. Pretty much every selection in the game has a timer, so if you decide to play this, you better put your tail into high gear. Pay attention and don't leave your seat. But yeah, if you've seen the game show, you already know what to expect here. It's pretty well done, though there's not much you can really screw up here. Tarzan Print Studio. Well, what do you say? It's another print studio like Winnie the Pooh before it. Wait, what the heck? Whose children are these? Okay, I think that's enough of Tarzan Print Studio. Chutes and Ladders.
Welcome to Chutes and Ladders.
Now, this is preschool. I'm not sure what to say about this, really. It's your typical kids game with a child narrator and simple rules. Only 3 boards to choose from, but I guess the presentation is nice. Every special space has a related cutscene with the group of kids. You can't skip these. I'd prefer to do that, but hey, it's for the kids. This cutscene here didn't really work because the screaming child's voice overpowered the narrator, and I really have no idea what was happening.
Here's some on your seat on the bench if they need it.
I like how the kid says 5.
The spinner says 5.
I'm so glad you're here to play Monopoly Junior. I'm your host, Mr. Monopoly Junior.
I got a lot of playtime out of Monopoly Junior as a kid. Wouldn't expect it since most of these board game promotional discs were kinda lifeless, but this one has a lot of personality. Possibly serious cramps too, because I think Mr. Monopoly is way beyond the age of being able to pull moves like that. In a nutshell, this is a watered-down game of Monopoly with a focus on theme parks and the sort of rides you'd find there. Before rolling the dice, you can select some of the surrounding events with your mouse to play a minigame of sorts, related to what you've clicked on.
Water slide.
These vary in quality. Most are mildly entertaining at best. Quality duck sound.
Fly Sandy's helicopter and click on a money bag to...
I can't hear you. He's still talking, apparently. Is this stealing? This feels like stealing. Everything between is as you'd expect for a well-designed kids game. That said, this isn't gonna blow anyone away by any means. It's just a high standard for a cereal box game. RollerCoaster Tycoon. This is likely the most important game to ever come out of a cereal box promotion because it inspired a generation of players. It seems like a majority of fans for the RollerCoaster Tycoon series originate from getting this game free in their cereal box. I theorized that there were more of these CDs than the other running games during its series because somehow I ended up with 3 of them. As the name implies, this game deals with roller coasters. It might appear complex at first glance, and I guess it is, though a little experimentation is all you need to learn and have fun. You'll probably suck at coaster creation at first, but you get better over time as you discover what works versus what doesn't. This video is already a bunch of silliness, so I thought I'd point out some specific things that will ruin the game for everyone. If you listen to the crowd in the first game, there's a certain clip of dialogue that sounds like someone is screaming out, "Dora, Dora, Dora, SpongeBob." This is only the case for the first game. Despite the audience sounding identical between both, that one clip was actually removed. At one point I thought, could that have really been a copyright issue? But no, after all, they kept in Donkey Kong. Surely they're not saying these things, but since I noticed that some 15 years ago, it cannot be removed from my brain. Now you can all suffer with me. Parker Brothers Classic Card Games. I was told that apparently if you also own the Milton Bradley board games disc, you can use this one to boot the game, and vice versa. So you could get rid of one or the other disc to play both games. I can't verify this though. I hope that information is good enough for us to move on because, yeah, I don't really have anything to say about this. Battleship Surface Thunder. You just gotta collect lifeboats, which have invisible people in them, then bring them back to a docking station. Try your best to either avoid enemy artillery, or fight back with the single front or back cannons, or multiple side cannons. There's almost no reason to use your front or back cannons when you can just tilt slightly and use much grander firepower. Not like turning your ships any difficult anyways. Careful that your people aren't eaten by sharks. Oh lord, they're dead! I got to the third mission where you have to shoot down 3 enemy zeppelins, but you can't shoot in the air, I think. I couldn't figure out what to do, and the controls say nothing about anti-air defenses. The game also comes with a traditional game of Battleship that you can play solo or with a friend. That was alright. This would be a fine game to get in your cereal box.
He's Mr. Potato Head. He's more fun than any Spud should be. He's cool, he's really hot. It's hot.
This goes on for like 30 seconds. So imagine all the things you can do with Mr. Potato Head in real life, and that's basically what you can do in this computer game, digitally. Fun! There's some other quirky stuff too, like puzzles, painting, something called dot to dot where you just click the numbers in the right order to make a picture. Simple stuff. The appeal is for young kids, and that's about it. Sus, am I right, guys? SpongeBob SquarePants Operation Krabby Patty. Yeah, this is a cereal box game. Where to begin with this one? Well, it has a weird story that's animated in what is some of the worst looking 3D I've seen. While this looks bad, it still happens to be the best part of the game. The story is a bit hard to follow, but only because it frequently relies on visual gags that would have sounded a lot better on paper than execution. So as a result, the story and the weird jokes collided into one, and it makes it very confusing. I can't tell what's vital and what isn't. Granted, I only played the side Gary is missing story for this recording. Wait, a side story? Now that sounds like quality. Nah, both sides are identical in gameplay with only different characters, and maybe a new environment to play in, if you're lucky. I guess it's fair to call this a collection of minigames. One by one you unlock others that consist of the same, very basic gameplay formula. You gotta repeat the same game 4 times over, by the way, to get to the next. Wasn't long into the game where I got really bored and stopped, but I then realized it was super easy to swap textures in the game, so I made SpongeBob look like this. Then for some reason I kept playing for a bit. There's one part where Squidward is like exercising or something, but all the while he just screams in pure agonizing pain. I think they forgot to get the voice actor to record some stretch lines, so they thought that was good enough. It's pretty hilarious, for the wrong reasons.
Okay, SpongeBob, now what?
There's also this scene where Squidward tries to trick SpongeBob by putting on voices of other characters, which was just really dumb. This game is such a mess. I'm surprised there's no content creators on YouTube who've torn this apart yet. There's some really easy meme material here that's unexplored. Only reason I'm not going to is because I don't care enough. Stuart Little 2.
Wow, what a wild ride home from school. First, a beautiful little bird falls from the sky into my car.
You know, you would think I edited this, but the game actually decided to freeze on this frame. I love it. I think this follows the events of the movie, which if it does, then wow, what an uneventful movie this was. A bird falls into Stuart's car, and he tries to keep her safe while a falcon is after her. It's another collection of minigames, all pretty much on par with each other. That is to say, quite painful. I mean, I've played worse, but you wouldn't want to be caught playing this. You can collect fruits as you navigate the play space, which is pointless other than for score. The sound of that apple is the only nostalgic thing for me when going back to revisit this.
Wow!
Which is funny because that sound is awful and I wish it didn't exist. Hey, at least it was memorable. This is such a weird mix between trying to be a game and an advertisement for the movie. Do you know what I mean? Like, at least other movie games felt like they had an idea. In this, I just feel like I'm stuck in a purgatory when I play this.
Click here to go home.
I'm home. I am home! No more Stuart Little! No more crappy cereal games! Time to play something good. Something like, RollerCoaster Tycoon 2, the sequel! Alright, now this is thrilling. Okay, let's see here. There we go. RollerCoaster Tycoon... Wait. Is that? You might take one look at this and think, what the? How is this any different from the original game? It's all about functionality, baby! And of course a whole bunch of new maps. As a modern comparison, pretend the first RollerCoaster Tycoon was an early access game, and the sequel is the full finished product. There's tons more scenery, rides, tools. They even landed some kind of deal with Six Flags where a lot of their stuff is in the game. Even recreations of the Six Flags parks that you can fiddle around with. My only real complaint with the game is how a lot of the scenarios are filled with useless paths that you'll actually have to get rid of so the guests don't get lost. Because, the AI pathfinding in this game is not great. Wheel of Fortune. I still remember how weird it was back then to hear Vanna White speak, since in the show she's just that mute person that taps the letters that show on the display board. You can pick between 10 different game themes, which is pretty sweet. Select one and you're into the game. There was clear attention in the presentation, which made this pretty great for its time. Now and then I'll still pop up the PlayStation 2 game with friends. But of course these days when I pull out my PS2, my friends just look at me and say,
1L for you.
Atari's 80 classic games in one. Oh hey, I just covered a bunch of Atari games. That experience helped me to better decide on this collection being bad. Not only does it frequently crash, but the interface is just awful. The emulation of the 2600 games is, well, I guess it's okay, but the actual emulator end crashes too. Sound, graphics, all good, I guess. Playability is fine, but it's just a 2600 emulator in a poorly made shell. You could easily accomplish this by your own means. I guess for this one you're just paying to own the copies of the games? These only being the first-party Atari games, by the way. No Activision here. You're missing out on a good chunk of the 2600's popularity. There's some arcade ports here. First one I tried being Breakout, and, don't play Breakout with buttons. These games have scan lines enabled by default. I didn't actually check if you could disable that, but it looked quite bad here. There's an extras menu, but much like the rest of the interface, it's bland. The information is neat, but it only had to exist to accomplish that. I don't know. Honestly, even when this came out, it wouldn't be very impressive, and I should know, because I had this disc back then, and it wasn't very impressive. You know, I would include Zoo Tycoon in this video, but that'd be cheating, as the only General Mills Zoo Tycoon game was the second one from 2004. Never played that. Curious why they didn't do a General Mills run of the original. It's the perfect companion game to RollerCoaster Tycoon, which got 2 promotions. So, those are the General Mills releases I decided to take a look at today. There are a few gems in the rough, but for the most part these were shovelware games repackaged as giveaways. Can't complain since they were basically free as long as you wanted the accompanying cereal. Overall, I can say with confidence that these promotions were pretty rad, no matter what game you ended up with. A free computer game is a free computer game. Anyways, that's all for this one, so thanks for watching. Let me know what General Mills games you enjoyed growing up in the comments. Be sure to subscribe for more stuff like this, and I'll catch you Frame Raiders in the next video.